whatever question may be on your mind, think about, future stories, what's the trends in Raleigh. So we just want this as a first one, and then hopefully maybe every couple of months or so, but, working with Deacle and the communications department for the city. So the backdrop to this, just a little, context, playing off of Anna's question. Is there going to be another, big announcement? We're coming out of this super expansionary period for the city of Raleigh where all the money was flowing, ARPA dollars, and one of, my responsibilities as mayor and this city council is trying to keep those projects moving and bring them to fruition. I mean, you saw Gibson Play Plaza, which was not an ARPA project, but, that's come to fruition. Feel great about that, obviously, having been involved with it. The Rust Bus, that project, now you're seeing, of course, the convention center expansion, Red Hat. So some of these big, the DMV site, dollars that were flowing, let's bring those home and complete those projects. We're now in a more contractionary period. I was just over at the NCDOT summit this morning. Crowd over there, 1,000+ people. Governor was there, head of the chamber was there. They did have an undersecretary. I use those opportunities to try and make sure that money does keep flowing to Raleigh. We are, I told them this morning, you come into this county and you see cranes in the sky, you see construction, you see bulldozers. This is all positive, and I know a lot of the sentiment becomes, well, Raleigh's so wealthy, those people can pay for everything themselves, they're booming. And just convincing them that, we want to do our part. We are investing, but we really need the partnership with the state and the federal government, because even with the Six Forks and other projects, right, the 50% increase in land values over a short period of time plus inflation meant some of the traditional models of building infrastructure just weren't working as well, under that cauldron of issues. So we do need assistance on big projects like the bus rapid transit, like major highways, bridges, et cetera. So I use every opportunity. I also did go to Capitol Hill several months ago. I actually talked to about 8 of our congressional, and one issue was to lobby for transportation dollars, and then secondarily things like housing dollars. Again, we're a wealthy and prosperous community, but affordable housing, the subsidy for units like on that Rust Bus was going to be $200,000 a unit subsidy. I mean, that's an incredible amount of money, right, to get one unit of affordable housing. So, it is expensive to do these projects. So moving from expansionary to contractionary, trying to keep things moving. The other issues, was that we all campaigned on keeping housing. We know that anything we can do to encourage private sector to do housing and projects in general, I think this council wants to see units coming online. And I will say I see the housing market as supply and demand. I mean, the more units you have, then that's going to affect the entire market. I think a lot of people argue that there's this, it's just affordable housing. We don't need other housing. I think we need it all. Public safety, is the other big topic. I feel great about Chief Boyce. I know he just had his session yesterday. Violent crimes flat, property crimes down 12%. I think all that's good news. Hopefully, we can get the violent crime, reductions as well. I have told, both Chief Boyce and I've talked to candidates running for the district attorney. It's the quality of life stuff that I hear the most about. I mean, this is a fairly safe community. Any homicide is one too many. But what I really hear about is trash, panhandling, noise, all of those things that may not be quite as, dramatic, or they're not in the courthouses, but they're very important to a quality of life and keeping investing. And I recently was I saw the panelist, Commissioner Tisch from New York City, where they're investing in these Q teams, quality of life teams. So I don't think Raleigh's alone in understanding that all of those smaller, daily grind issues do matter. We do need to address them. And I think you're seeing this council look at things like the noise ordinance, some of the panhandling on highways, as well as this is now litter pickup season. So when I was at DOT, just thanking Hopkins for his leadership on that and some of the other quality of life. And then the resilience issues, we're so fortunate that we have not had, the issues of Western North Carolina, and, certainly stand by continuing to assist our other cities and partners as they recover. Even more recently, like Chapel Hill with some of their flooding, did reach out to that mayor and City of Raleigh staff. Some of our inspectors assisted there in trying to get some of those buildings back up after the flood. So we're still investing. I feel like one of the most undercovered or reported is just how strong our water system is, how much investment we're putting in that. I mean, we have $1 billion over the next 25 years, and I think partially because it's working pretty well, you just take it for granted. And that has really enabled the growth of this area where we don't have these water constraints and some other cities do. So I would say in general, feel pretty good about that, but I'll stop there. But those are the the big buckets of what we're thinking about. And if again any questions y'all have, this is just a chance for you to anything that's on your mind.
I'll start off with a question.
Sure.
Just going into that sort of contractionary period you're talking about, I think during your campaign you kind of identified that Raleigh residents maybe were sort of at the end of where they could have their property taxes raised. And like not really become angry or
Yep.
disgruntled. And you passed this budget with no property
Yeah.
tax increases. I'm curious, when you're looking at going forward, I know you were talking about like how can the city be more efficient? How can we run this growing area without raising property taxes? Do you still feel like that's like something you're thinking about a lot, and how hard is that to keep?
Yeah. No, so I had coffee with a long-time sort of, citizen resident activist that I've known since the late 90s. And, he's one of the guys with the baseball caps and has, served on different committees. And he came with his property tax bills, and he was showing me over the last, X number of years, I think it was like the last 5 years, his property tax has gone up about 40%. He lives up in Brentwood, so northeast Raleigh. Then he looked at southeast Raleigh, 50%, because you've got more aggressive escalation of, with gentrification. And then he looked at somebody down in Glenwood, Brooklyn neighborhood. They had a lesser, I think they had earlier increases, and now we're less escalatory. So, I mean, just this week having a coffee with somebody showing me how aggressively this property tax, and this person's retired, so they're on a fixed income, they're feeling this. So it is important. And I think the economics, kind of coming back to that as, the past state treasurer, you think about, so how do I keep those property taxes down? And it's, to some extent, it's a pro-growth, but it's building using existing infrastructure. So more downtown development, infill where you're getting projects, and you're seeing council look more and more at this when we have these annexations. Is this going to be net negative for the city? Is it going to contribute to our property taxes, or is it just going to be a demand for more fire stations, more schools, more roads, and not really pay the bills? So we are looking at that as we get some of these the Beltline and other bigger, you get a 37-story tower on Glenwood South. I mean, obviously hugely additive to our property tax base with, very little additional infrastructure needed. So, I mean, those are the kind of decisions that, I keep in my mind. And how do you fortify, because downtown is our hugest property tax contributor, North Hills following after that. How do you keep those areas healthy and growing so that it can help offset, these increases to residents?
Yeah, but obviously, you have to pay city staff, right? And it's like this huge surge across salaries all over the place. Do you feel like that surge in salary increases sort of past like that peak that happened during the pandemic, or is that something that, just in terms of keeping staff, is just going to have to keep happening?
No, I think the labor market's turning some, right? So you're seeing more layoffs, and particularly here. I've also had, conversations about some of the federal layoffs that have hit this community, particularly with, some of the global health and research positions. So I think that there's going to be a little more of, pro-employee. We should be able to find good talent, and I think Raleigh caught up late in the game with this big pay increase recently that puts us in pretty good stead competitively to hire really great people. I think our next challenge will be, we still do have a shortage of police and fire per, the ratio of per resident. So working on that, and yeah, so there's going to be pressure on taxes continuing. I'm a proponent of public-private. I mean, obviously I did that at Dick's where we had private dollars partnering with the city. So anywhere we can try to promote public-private as a way to offset taxpayer dollars. I think we also have to look at public-public. We're working with Wake County. How can we better leverage, even like when you're locating police and fire, if you put them together, do you save money? Can you co-locate with the library police? And I mean, how can we work together better so we have less duplication, more efficiency? And I think all of these potential cutbacks at the federal level for all the cities and
I'm curious about how you make that pitch to residents. Street rezoning, that's very controversial happening. North Hill's just it's rezoning, and you talk to North Hill's residents about these big developments happening in the area. How do you communicate that about the property taxes if they're concerned about that at some of these?
yeah, I'm because I don't think most people think economics and the cities. I mean, a lot of people will say when you're approving any building, in general, developers or corrupt politicians or something, as opposed to we're trying to move. So explain that keeping the downtown, let's just take downtown, keeping really healthy to your property tax base is critical to keeping your property low. Councilors representing more far-flung districts who wonder, why do we put the amount of money we do into downtown? I mean, you look at the Bill King, who I think a lot of you were at the Downtown Raleigh Association last week, and there's that one graph just showing the property tax and the massive down, shown that, in national forums and had people be like, wow, like, the fact that you have that property tax base, and how it, but it is not messaging. Most people are not thinking about macro context.
Is there a belief or a strategy that you can, especially with investment big that have, you can continually bring in additional tourism dollars that can offset some of the potential elsewhere?
Attract private investment is the strategy. I mean, you look at something like Dick's Park, and I know many people are like, well, it's a park. I mean, why? Dollars coming in around that park. It is a wise public investment going to Lenovo, the Convention Center, Red Hat, decision on Fayetteville Street, and part of C and others dollars towards.
There's a lot of conversation about expansion between I know that it's not impacting their professional team to Raleigh.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball, Dundon, or other
Yeah.
investors.
Yeah, well, we definitely see the value of sports in Raleigh, and I will say that's another thing about being the mayor of a city like Raleigh, where you have a team like the Hurricanes. I mean, I got to spend a couple of hours with Tom Dundon just talking about the team, what is about it, Steve. So the conversations I've had have been more general about professional sports teams, and then how do we attract the next round? And I think we do with the existing teams in Carolina, right? We want to do them that we have a shot at baseball and WNBA. So as a city, I what kind of resources and do we have the economic resources to bring to the table? So you're thinking about our interlocal dollars. How do we make money for these where we are, we want to make sure to host a Major League Baseball team, and that goes back to the property tax. We want to be ready when the time comes, and I feel like, again, I think we're laying that groundwork locally. I think the city is interested, and hopefully we private as well.
When you talk about tax-based benefits, it's a positive downtown. I mean, this week we've talked about some issues.
I notice about we stand by to, obviously we are not, as a institution, dollars, into these to land zoning. We did work with the university on even things else. It's extremely valuable property, right? I mean, the fact that they had, St. Aug's has signed these deals with different, institutions and how that works its way, the entitlements and courts. I mean, it is unclear to me exactly how all this plays out, but, clearly trying to support the existing students who are, I guess, started this week, online. Again, yes, it is of concern, and I understand. I was just over there this weekend looking at the old hospital building. I mean, what an incredible institution that has contributed so much to making Raleigh. So, I mean, it's an important institution.
Are they current on utility bills at this point?
Yeah.
Going back to the conversation around development, I feel like there's kind of been a lull recently, whereas now we're starting to see a bunch more cranes in the air. Do you see this being like a period of like booming growth for the city, and kind of how do you see that playing out with all these projects that are planned in the works right now?
Yeah, I thought the folks from the Highline Development did a really nice job last week talking about, and all the developers I've spoken with, is that there was, all that expansionary boom time of the late COVID and all the apartments that came online. Absorption's been really good, so we don't have massive vacancies, but everybody's waiting for that to be absorbed before they really kick off the next round of projects. And then also, interest rates haven't come down. So what I've heard is, just all things being equal, probably early 27, you see another round of that construction. But people are waiting for, because the rents have to get back up interest rates for them to break ground. But again, the creamery, I think, they were just saying that the take-up has been good enough. They feel like they can go ahead and move forward. I'm also thrilled to see, I live over near the platform, so I'm glad that, John Kane has been able to move forward on some of these projects. So, yeah, but I'm definitely sensitive to that. We have fewer projects coming across, and then you really want to think carefully about, do you reject things knowing there's less deal flow happening?
Has there been any impact from lack of the state budget on all these financing? I know you're tracking a lot of what's happening in Capitol Hill, but have you had a conversation with lawmakers on Jones Street about what that timing may look like and what, if any, impact you're feeling here?
Yeah, we have talked about it, and I think the continuation budgets have kind of, just helped us continue to move on. Our biggest concern is, some of the just transportation dollars and whether cities, the economic engines of the state, are getting sort of the appropriate share. Again, I think there's a sense that, you guys have all this money, you're really prosperous, we're going to reallocate more dollars, to rural areas, and you guys can sort of do your own. You're seeing Charlotte-Mecklenburg, right, trying to float additional penny, half cent. I think we're going to see how that goes in Charlotte. And, then we also have to deliver these projects that we've already done through bonds. So it's a how much does the city and the local level need to do, and what is the state going to contribute? I have gone down, to the actually cookies ahead of Gibson Play Plaza opening. I try to keep it light, fun, happiness, puppies, sunshine, that kind of stuff.
I wanted to follow up with something you said about doing right by the Carolina Courage.
Yeah.
I know you guys went to Kansas City.
Yeah.
They got a tour of,
Yeah.
I guess they have 2 soccer stadiums.
Practice and the real deal, right?
And, I'm wondering, I think there has been, downtown south is sort of still stuck in what seems like limbo. I mean, it feels like maybe the 27 timeline is like maybe a chance for that to be reignited. But I'm curious to know what you think the role of the city is in potentially helping that happen. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't know, obviously, they're based in Cary right now, but
Yep.
I think Raleigh does feel some sort of, partnership there.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, Carolina Courage and, of course, women's sports have had such a moment, and it's an important team, and you want them to do well. So, I mean, I'm in favor of the tax increment finance districts. I mean, as treasurer, I get those. The current treasurer, I think, is supportive of getting more of those going in North Carolina. We just haven't used that tool, and I think we've talked about it, downtown south. We're talking about it on the BRT. It's that if you make a good public investment and then private investment follows, how do you capture some of that additional property tax revenue to help you, right, offset those investments? So to me, I would love to use just to, right, have more success, and maybe around Dix too.
Do you think the public has the appetite for that type of tool, especially since it hasn't been done in Raleigh?
I think, when you say TIF to the, like, what the heck are you talking about? I mean, it's a growth-based tool. In general, I think people would be, because it's essentially, it's not coming out of their pocket. So I think Charlotte's used it a lot. Other cities have used it. I think Raleigh's just been a little more skittish. I mean, we're, a government town, but I think certainly working with local government commission and the state treasurer, and given my background, I think we could through.
When you talk about economic drivers for the city, hopscotch, we're losing bluegrass. Dreamville's changing, which I think has people concerned about what that's
Yep.
going to look like moving forward. I mean, are you guys doing anything to try to attract new festivals here, or even come up with your own to try to start something new and make Raleigh a real festival destination?
Yeah, we have been talking about like just cultural programming for the whole city, and is there a better way to have a little more centralized? You've got each institution sort of making decisions, right? Like what's best for the convention center, they do that. What's best for, Martin Marietta Memorial Auditorium, they do that. And making good decisions, but how do we kind of make sure there's a cohesive strategy? We've had discussions recently about like Jaipur Literary Festival, right? Partnering with NC State, South Asian community, one of the biggest two, sort of communities we've got that's come in. Like, do you make a strategic investment and, try to partner on a project like that? How do we figure out, the next, like with Dreamville, I think Marshall, has had a call with them this week with Live Nation. So, absolutely want to think about music, how we better leverage all of these incredible facilities. People want to be in this market, Live Nation, AEG, they all want to be here. How do we maximize that locally? We're doing well, but I think we could coordinate better.
The delays at Red Hat, are you concerned that is going to be any longer than what we already think it will be?
No, I think we'll have our season, and, the current shows are going well, so.
I have a question about the noise ordinance you're talking about. I feel like that's mostly kind of related to like music, but what is the city doing about all the vehicular noise mufflers? I feel like it's gotten to be a lot.
Yeah. So the police department does have particular initiatives where they've done. I wrote about one called Silent Night. I love their titles. Yes, Silent Night, where they've tried to. Well, I think the night I had the stats for 49 people, and they did 12 citations for mufflers. They have more recently actually even closed off certain roads downtown. I think there's an attraction talking about downtown because of the canyon effect of the noise kind of coming through. People just love to ride, loud motorcycles. So I think there's been strategic street closures. You saw that on Glenwood South, but I think there's other areas where they're thinking about, where are people doing this and how can we just, shut that off at the stem. And then, so enforcement actions, street closures. We're also, so not just the loud cars, looking at the dumpsters, believe it or not, people who live near Rex Hospital, people who live near like 5 Points, and you get the dumpster at 3 a.m. We are at least talking to both the industry and residents about, is there a better, medium of living in urban environments and all that comes with that. And then, of course, the music, we have been consulting with on a decibel-based system. I mean, if anybody knows live music, right, it's Austin, Texas. And I feel good about the direction of that. So we're hoping to have something back. They've done a number of surveys and things, public input, and we should have something maybe back in late September. Yep.
And all those things we talk about are like quality of life.
Yeah.
That harkens back to what you
Yep.
talked about in the beginning. I mean, does that just kind of say where we are at as a city, that we're not talking about, a high number of shootings or homicides, or these violent crimes aren't as bad as they are in other parts of the country?
So fortunate to be here, and we're fortunate that these are the conversations we're having. And that's not to discount, right? We have streets. We know. I mean, things can happen. We've had 21, homicides this year, so we can do better. Like, we're working on it. Yeah, I mean, the fact that most of what I'm getting from citizens is not, violent crime, but things like loud motorcycles. That's a good place to be.
I mean, speaking of quality of life, obviously, if you look at sort of the point-in-time counts for homelessness, Wake County as a whole has increased in the past couple of years.
Yep.
I'm curious if you've seen any early feedback, about, do you feel like there is progress being made in that?
Yeah, now you're asking that question. It kind of goes back to housing, where I believe, right, you've got to get units of housing. You have to keep housing somewhat affordable, and, have enough units that you can of limbo world of shelters, which has its own set of traumas. That said, I'm grateful for the shelters we have and Wake County's partnership with us on that. I mean, what my looking ahead, we're watching cuts in food assistance and what that's going to do. We're looking at cuts to, housing assistance, and again, lobbied for that to keep that money flowing, because we need those sort of things for shelters and assistance. And then what can we do, partnering with the county. I mean, this weekend I actually read a whole book on fentanyl, just because I don't know enough about that, and I'm curious, like, are there better programs? Are there ways that one can, right, mitigate some of the distress that, you see out there on the streets? So just more conversations to come with folks like Chris and just, the county to discuss. I think it's, with the cuts in the federal, I'm expecting some of the challenges to get more before we, but the program of direct assistance with the 60 people, I think, has been very successful. And
Do you worry the federal government doesn't look maybe kindly on direct assistance?
some of the direct assistance, yeah, or the state general assembly, right? So I think it's been a very successful pilot, but
I think you all have been very efficient. There is time for one more question.
we covered it all. I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate you covering the city. And again, just sort of, feel free to, text or call, but just trying to have these more often to keep the communication going. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.